Hi, welcome to this episode of The Daily. My name is Brendan Malone. Well, last week there was a huge storm that broke on the Catholic horizon, albeit a very briefly lived one, but it was still very ferocious because of some reporting about some comments that Pope Francis made about the role of deaconesses possibly being reinstituted or brought back into the church. And what happened was the articles that were being, and not so much the commentary, I can't blame the commentators who were responding to media reporting, but the media reporting about this and certain commentators who were running with this was not factually accurate. What happened was people were misreporting or misrepresenting, taking snippets of what Pope Francis said, and then they were also adding spin that is not technically correct. So they were using the wrong terminology to describe what Pope Francis was actually talking about, so for example, referring to female deacons or women deacons is not actually correct terminology. It's deaconesses, but that's an aside. We'll come back to that in a second for why that was an issue. But what happened was when you actually went and read what Pope Francis has said in context and in its entirety, you realise that what was being reported was not accurate. What was being reported appeared to be at odds. And so you've got people like commentators like Father James Martin, who is a well-known online commentator, who is pushing this line that is completely inaccurate about what the Pope actually said. When you go and read in context what he said and why he said it, the way it was being reported was that the Pope had just issued a decree, when in actual fact he was responding to a question that was asked of him. And not only that, but when you read it in context, you realise it's very, very different to what and how it was being reported. Now, why is that such an issue? Well, it's kind of, this episode wouldn't even be happening if this had been the secular media, because we sort of now just expect that from the secular media. We know that the secular media either doesn't care, doesn't want to care, or doesn't understand Catholic theology, Catholic thought, Catholic practice, Christianity in general. And so they don't report fairly and balanced because they don't actually know what they're talking about half the time, or they don't care to know what they're talking about. They just sort of chuck stuff out there. And so you sort of expect these miscommunications, misinformation to come out through the mainstream secular media. However, this wasn't anything to do with the mainstream media. This was Catholic media who were breaking and reporting this story. And Catholic media were not only misrepresenting what the Pope had actually said, but Catholic media were using terminology that isn't even consistent or correct to Catholicity. And I would argue that's a problem. That's a real problem. I don't think any Pope should have to contend with a Catholic media that is creating these sort of misapprehensions, false information, storms in a teacup, and things that are being sort of blown up because of the fact that they are not actually accurately and fairly reporting the fullness of what's being said. They're rushing off because they think they can see an angle to sell a few more clicks, so they just chuck this information out there. Regardless of how you feel about the issue of deaconesses, the point is that the way this was covered was not good. And the Catholic media, I think, really needs to take a long, hard look at itself and say, are we actually failing in our duty of care to the Catholic Church when we start rushing things and misrepresenting things just like the mainstream media does, who has no care or no proper concern for how they report issues relating to the Church and Christianity? Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow on The Daily.